The arena trembled under the roar of thousands, yet inside the octagon, there was silence. Not the silence of peace, but of something far deadlier. The silence before chaos. Fedor Emelianenko stood in his corner, his eyes cold, unreadable. A man who had been here countless times. A man who feared nothing. Across from him, Renato Babalu Sobral bounced lightly on his feet, his gaze sharp, restless, almost predatory. For him, this wasn't just another fight. It was a declaration of war. The lights dimmed, the cage door locked with a metallic clang, and suddenly the crowd faded into the background. Two men, two nations, one destiny. Fedor's calmness was unnerving, his breathing steady, his face emotionless, like a hunter waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Babalu, however, moved like a storm caged in flesh, pacing, twitching, calculating. His lips whispered words only he could hear, perhaps a promise to himself. Tonight, I'll break the legend. The referee's voice echoed through. Fight. And instantly, the world shrank to 8 sides of steel. Babalu exploded forward with a brutal kick, his aggression a statement of intent. But Fedor didn't flinch. His eyes tracked every movement, every breath. The Russian's counter came like a flash of lightning, short, clean, and surgical. A right hand grazed Babalu's jaw, a warning shot that whispered louder than any roar. The crowd erupted, sensing what was coming. Yet Fedor's expression never changed. No celebration. No reaction. Just that cold, unshakable focus. Because Fedor knew this wasn't even the beginning. In that cage, something ancient had awakened, something primal. Two warriors weren't just fighting for victory. They were fighting to erase each other's name from history. And as the first round clock ticked down, one thing became clear. Only one of them would walk out the same. The second round began with a vengeance. Babalu came forward like a man possessed, every punch thrown with bad intentions. Sweat flew with every collision. Every strike echoed through the arena like thunder. The crowd was on its feet, screaming for chaos, and chaos answered. Babalu's relentless pressure began to close the distance. He trapped Fedor against the cage, launching elbows and knees like a man trying to break destiny itself. But Fedor's defense was otherworldly. Every slip, every counter seemed almost effortless, like he could see the strikes before they arrived. Then suddenly, Fedor switched. He caught Babalu's arm mid-combination, twisting and rolling with terrifying precision. The transition was lightning fast, and for a moment, Babalu's body froze. The crowd gasped as the Russian legend went for an armbar, a move that had ended so many before. Babalu resisted, roaring in defiance, his veins bulging as he tried to fight the pressure. For a few agonizing seconds, the battle became a test of willpower rather than skill. The cage rattled, the crowd screamed, the commentators shouted over each other. But then, Fedor released, not out of mercy, out of calculation. He wanted the war to continue. He wanted Babalu to feel every second of it. Rising from the canvas, both men's faces were painted in sweat and fury. Blood trickled from Babalu's nose. Fedor's chest rose and fell like a machine refueling between battles. When the bell rang, both men stared at each other. No words, no gestures. Just the silent agreement that this was far from over. In that silence, the tension became unbearable. The storm wasn't dying. It was only gathering force. By the third round, exhaustion had set in, but neither man showed it. Every breath was heavy, yet every movement carried purpose. Babalu's face was bruised, but his eyes burned brighter than ever. He started feinting, testing Fedor's timing, trying to drag him into unfamiliar waters. Fedor remained still, unblinking, the calm in the center of the hurricane. Then, Babalu changed rhythm, a quick jab, a feint, a low kick, and finally landed a solid right hand to Fedor's temple. The impact sent a jolt through the crowd. For the first time, Fedor stumbled. The arena exploded. Babalu saw it, the crack in the armor, the chance to destroy a legend, and he lunged. He rained down punches like a man trying to carve his name into history. But the Russian's instincts, honed through decades of war, refused to die. Fedor ducked under a wild hook, clinched, and unleashed a thunderous hip throw that shook the cage. Babalu hit the mat hard. The crowd gasped as Fedor followed up with hammer fists, precise, brutal, unstoppable. Time slowed. You could hear every thud, every gasp, every heartbeat. The referee circled closely, but Babalu, somehow, survived. He wrapped his legs around Fedor's waist, locking him in his guard. The storm had shifted. Now it was a ground war, a chess match drenched in blood. As the seconds drained from the clock, both men refused to yield. When the horn sounded, they rose slowly, battered, bleeding, yet smiling faintly. They were soldiers in the purest sense, living for the chaos, breathing in the violence. The audience knew. The next round would not bend in decision. It would end in destruction. The fourth round began with a silence that felt like the world was holding its breath. Babalu's team screamed instructions from his corner, their voices desperate. Across the cage, Fedor didn't move. He just stared. That same cold, unreadable expression, like death itself had taken human form. When the bell rang, Fedor exploded forward. No hesitation, no mercy. His punches were sharper now, more violent, each one a message. You had your moment. Now it's mine. Babalu tried to counter, but the precision of Fedor's strikes broke through his defense. A left hook snapped his head back. A right cross followed. The sound was sickening, pure impact. Yet Babalu refused to fall. The Brazilian dug deep, biting down on his mouthpiece, swinging with everything he had left. His punches were wild, fueled by pure rage. The two collided in the center of the cage, punch for punch, soul for soul. The arena was chaos. Every fan was on their feet, screaming as two men traded the kind of strikes that could end careers. Then, in a blur, Fedor changed levels. A perfect takedown. The slam echoed like thunder. The Russian transitioned to mount, raining elbows with mechanical precision. The referee watched closely. Seconds felt like hours. Babalu tried to twist, to escape, but his strength was fading. Fedor paused for just a heartbeat, looking down at his fallen rival. There was no hatred in his eyes, only inevitability. The next strike landed, and the arena went silent. When the bell finally rang, it was over. The referee stepped in, pulling Fedor off the battered form of Babalu. The crowd erupted, not just in victory, but in awe. They had witnessed something raw, something primal. Fedor stood in the center of the cage, his chest rising and falling, blood streaked across his gloves. He didn't raise his arms. He didn't smile. For him, this wasn't triumph. It was duty. Across the cage, Babalu sat on his knees, bruised but unbroken. Fedor walked toward him, extended a hand. Babalu looked up, eyes glassy, then nodded and took it. Two warriors, no words, just mutual respect forged in violence. The crowd, still roaring, began to chant Fedor's name, but even they could feel it. The quiet sadness that lingered after war. The lights dimmed. Fedor looked to the crowd once more, that calm mask still unshaken. In that moment, he wasn't just a fighter. He was something more. A ghost of an era where men fought not for fame, but for honor. As he walked out of the cage, leaving behind the wreckage of another legend, the commentary echoed through the speakers. Fedor Emelianenko, once again, untouchable. But deep inside, everyone knew. Tonight, both men had left a piece of their soul inside that cage. And though one was declared the winner, neither truly walked away whole.